everyone, we are back to pick up where we left off in our previous video, which was the first video for our third part, where I created the database and the corresponding tables for our application. Now that that's all set and ready to receive data, we're going to go on and now code our new module. And I can't remember if I mentioned this in the previous video, but we're going to create a recipe module. It's just a application or a form that accepts information. And the way I think I'm going to structure this tutorial is I'm going to, instead of typing every character, I'm going to copy and paste from my cheat sheet right here, so that one, I can walk you through some of the instructions, but also I want to add a couple of functions to show you how the entire CRUD functionality should work. Because if you're working on a real application, you know, in addition to obviously having database functionality, you need to be able to read that data, update that data, delete that data, etc. So let's go on and get started. We left off here at our install, where we were installing the schema for our database. We've got that done. Let's go back to our best recipes module. What I've done is I've gone in and set up a permissions function here. This permissions function is a little special. Here's the reason why I separated it out. This one is focused on our module that we are creating, and I'm going to show you this a little later once we're running the code, so that you can see what functionality this gives you on the admin side when you're adjusting permissions for a specific modules. So we'll see that later. We'll come on down here to our menu option, and nothing has changed, you know, from the other two modules that we created. This is going to be our URL recipe, best-recipes. And then, actually, I'll tell you what I want to do. I think to keep this a little consistent, I will make that best_recipes. And our title that we're going to have is add recipe. Just to show you all, I'm going to bring the browser window in just for a quick second. That link is actually this link right here, add recipe. It doesn't do anything at this moment because we have not given it all of the instructions. But we're going to set that up very, very shortly. And like I said, I'm going to scoot this window over. As I said, nothing has changed from the way we've set up modules in the past. I am going to create an include file. Inside that include file, I'm going to have my function. I will then give it instructions on laying out my application, and then in my case here, also submitting that data to a database. So let's get started, because the code is a little lengthy. Don't let that scare you, but let me go on and wade in. Like I said, we'll be doing a lot of copying and pasting. So one, we can avoid my typos, and then two, so we'll have time to go in and discuss, you know, what functionality is being added in. Okay. All right. So first thing that we are going to do, we have got our recipe module in. Let's start with the easy part. We are going to come here. We're going to create a new file, and that file name I'm going to paste right here. And I am now going to open that file. And for this one, let's go on and get started. Let's start up here. And, oops. Starting a little soon. PHP. Come down, I'll add my comments. And for this one, we're just going to be using hook form. So, let's see. Just implements. Oops. Hook form. All right, let's get started. So remember, or do you remember what your function name was? Maybe not. If not, we can just come here and grab it and come back to our form page, add our function here, and move this in. Okay, and also, you know, we're always passing by reference. Excuse me, in this particular case, I'm not passing by reference, but our form I'm passing, and then by reference, I am also passing form state. Same thing that we've done in our previous, in our previous modules that we've created. So now let's come on down here, and I tell you what, like I said, I am going to copy here from my little cheat sheet. Let's grab this. most of this code, and I'll tell you when, but most of this code will be very familiar to you. Let's kind of line things up here. So I'm creating my forms array. I am now populating that array with, information that you are fully accustomed to. The type, the title, whether it's required or not, and giving it a description. So we've got that set up and done. What I'm going to do, let me grab the remainder of this form. Here we are. Oops. All right, so what we have are several elements on our page. Our title field, our ingredients field, our directions field, and then our submit button. Simple, easy peasy, okay? Pull this in. You don't want that. And we have returned our form. So in very short order, and I hope you're kind of getting a feel for how much faster this is going. Now, of course, the speed of which one, you will obviously depend on actually the module that you're creating, because these are kind of short and to the point modules. But in my experience, actually, when I've had to create modules for various departments or groups, there's just something special that they're wanting, information they're wanting to grasp, and for some reason, a particular content type just isn't doing everything that they needed to do, or web forms isn't doing everything that they needed to do. And typically for me, it comes down to doing calculations, the data input that they need, and just some background calculating that needs to take place. And it's easier in some instances, actually in quite a few instances, to go in and create a separate module for it. Sometimes you can alter another module depending on what it's doing, but in my experience also I found that you can disrupt so much in that other module that it's a lot easier to create yours from scratch, so that everything is kind of compartmentalized and you aren't disrupting any other code. All right, so I tell you what I want to do is clear my cache here. What we should have now, we have our add recipe link already. While the cache is clearing, let me pull this back up. Once that is done, let's see, I'm not sure if my cache cleared. Let's go over here. Run that one more time. What I should now have is a form for our recipes. Okay, let's see what we've got. Good deal. Now, perfect. So we've got our title field, ingredients field, cooking field, and our submit button. Now, nothing does anything yet as far as the submit because we have not given it any instruction. So let's let that be the next step. Let's come here. And what I'm going to do, this is going to be on submit. I will provide the instructions for sending the data or the field information, the field contents to my database, and then actually what I'll do, I'm just going to do a success message saying that the data has been sent. I'm not going to go into a lot of validation, excuse me, because typically one, it's kind of specialized depending on the application that you're creating, and two, let's see, wait, let me grab this. And two, there's so many options that you can use, as far as determining validation. In this particular case, I'm going to let Drupal's back-end functionality to, determining whether my fields are empty or not, let that suffice for this moment in time. So come on, let's copy this. And remember, when you are wanting to create functionality on submit of the form, all you do is grab, whoops, I think I did indeed. Sorry about that. Let me exit. I put this in the wrong spot. I'm going to take that out. We're going to save this. This bit of code, actually, let me close this so it's not here. This bit of code should be included on my forms page. But as I was saying, you want to go in and grab that function name and then add submit to the end of that function name. And you are set and ready to add any necessary coding on the submit process. Now in my submit, what I'm going to do is work with the global user variable. I want to go in and grab the user that's submitting the recipe and add their UID to the database, just so I can know who did what. And I may be able to use that information later if, if I'm sending out a mass mailing or something like that. Right now, I'm only grabbing their UID in here. I could have grabbed, if I wanted to go deeper, grab their email, whatever other information may be stored about that user. But just for this example's sake, we're going to grab their UID. And right here is the meat of our submit statement, and that is just the insert query that is going to be run. Now, if you go to Drupal API, you can get, obviously tons of information about their DB API, their database API, full of information on how to use, from static queries to dynamic queries, how your field structure should be set up. Everything is there. As much as I can, I try to pick the simplest method possible, when I'm writing queries, because as you know, now this is what, 5 or 6 fields. If you're working for an actual, organization, the fields are just lengthy. So your queries are, however many lines long, just with, populating the fields. So I try to keep it as simple as possible. Now, what we're doing here is grabbing all of the data that's in our fields, in addition to the user ID, grabbing all the information that's in our field, and then we're telling the query to stick all that information into the corresponding fields of the tables in the database. Once it's got this information, it then executes the DB insert query, and after that's done, it then runs our Drupal set message. So let's see if that is all a go. So I'm going to bring the browser window back here, and let's do our clear cache. And again, just to mention, hopefully you all seeing how convenient this can be to have here, so that you can clear cache and go to your develop settings, etc. So I tell you what, I'm going to double check that we haven't broken anything with the original button. All that looks good. Let's create a recipe. How about turkey sandwich? So we're going to need turkey, mayo, onion, tomato. Let's see. Place mayo on bread. Alright, and now let's see what we get for our submit. Okay, so now all this is really done from the user's viewpoint right now is giving me this success message. I really don't know if it was a success or not. So there are 2 ways of checking this. One, obviously you can just go in and take a quick look into your database. Let me pull my database window up here for you. And if you take a look here, here's the turkey sandwich recipe that I just entered, and here was the brownie one I did for testing. So that is there, but obviously your end users, and you for that matter, depending on what you're doing, are not going to want to, and will not be able to, go into your MySQL database to take a look at everything. So what we want to do here, let's create a list from that database. Let's do a select query and pull everything from the database and display it. So what we are going to want to do, let's put the browser back over here for a moment. Let's go back to our code, and we're going to go back into our module. And what I'm going to do, I think probably the easiest way to do this, let's just add, a view all link, and write up a query that will go in and show us everything that is inside of the database. So back to our module, we're going to add one more item to it. And this item, I'll show you what that's going to do. Review all recipes. Nice to spell recipes correctly. Okay, we're doing a page callback, so I'm going to save the module file. I'm going to go in and create this file. This recipes listing form. Got that created. Save that. Now let's open it and begin our coding. And there, and we will be, so this is just going to be for a list of everything, recipe listing for right now. Recipe listing. Okay, come down here. Alright, and let's see, due to the length of this one, actually it's not really that bad, but I'm going to just copy this exact function in. And for those of you who would like to have the code, I will bundle everything up in a zip file, and then that way you can take it and just I just bundle up the entire module, and that way you can have it and install it on your system. But one little caveat, And it, it may just be specific to me. What I have found, especially when I'm trying to learn something new, the heartache and headache of having to debug my code, particularly 9 times out of 10, it's a typo that I have. It's easier, or no, it makes it easier for me to remember things if I actually have to type it in character for character for character. I do realize this one is a longer application, but I don't know, touch memory, something. There's something in there that kind of helps me remember some of the process, while I'm studying and trying to learn, new technology, a new language, etc. All right, so inside of my best recipes listing include form, I have this function. Why do I have this function? Because I told it that I needed this particular function in order to pass along some instructions. And in here, what I am going to do is, let me change this URL. I see one thing, because I know that's going to give me an error. Let's do this. Best recipes. Okay, say that. What I'm doing here, and this now, most of this, I think, you really can just think of this as just, pure, just programming, your PHP, MySQL programming. So even though we're doing this in Drupal, I want you to just kind of understand there's some syntactical things that you will learn for, you have to learn specifically related to Drupal, but Drupal's backend is PHP. Its popular database is MySQL. So that solid foundation should get you through, your development process inside of Drupal. So to that point, just a variable, I'm clearing out the variable. I have, I'm adding also to that variable a link. This is just a link here. And it'll sit at the top of my form. Excuse me. It will sit at the top of my form so that the user will have the option of going back and adding a recipe from that, from this page. And this array right here is just my header row in my table, in my HTML table. And coming on down here, this is just a query. It is going into the database, best recipes. Here is my alias. I have there are a couple of conventions that Drupal uses, and again, you can read about this in Drupal's database API. I am returning a limit of 10. This is the limit feature that you will find in any SQL statement. And adding a table sort capability, I'm adding a pager default capability to it, and I'm doing all of these with these little short lines of code. But literally, this query is just going in to this database and pulling back all of the records that are sitting in this database. The only special thing that really is here that I've set up at the end of this table, I'm going to have the edit and delete options on the table for each record that's entered. And then that way, as you're seeing, the user is seeing the recipes, they can go in straight from that point and delete the recipe. And right here, we're just outputting everything on the page. That's it. So let me show you what this does. And I think that will then make a lot more sense to you. And I'll tell you what, let's see if we can squeeze this. Well, okay, let me clear the cache. And I think I said because I'm doing so much programming, I'm not doing the dual screen so that you can see the browser window and the development window at the same time. So it's a little bit of pain switching back and forth. Okay, so now I have my add to recipe. Okay, so I do have my view all recipes, but let me do this. I am going to change the weight of, wrong one, right here, yeah. I'm going to change the weight so that these, everything related to my recipes will all be kind of blocked in there together. So let's go in and check and see if this moves down here. Probably need to clear the cache to do that. And let's see what we've got. There we are. So now I have entered in 2 recipes. I am clicking on now view all recipes, and here are my recipes. So they're set, they're here, they're in the database, and now I have the option to edit and delete them. Now here is the deal. We haven't done anything to tell it to edit and delete, so we would get a very nice little error if we did that. So our next steps, let's move on to adding that functionality. So let me go back to my module, and we will come here, and we're going to add 2 more items here. Now these are a little bit different, and really just a little bit different, but this is how you go in and specify a particular record so that you can work on that specific record. And in our cases where we want to delete or edit something, we need to reference the specific record, and we're going to use this wildcard option here. So our URL is still recipe, delete, and then the wildcard. And in this wildcard, where we'll grab the record ID or the recipe ID. And if you will remember, let's see, do I still have that recipe ID? Let's see. Actually, I don't think you're going to see that here. Oh, here we go. The recipe ID is what I'm pulling that in, and I'm using that also, to track any changes that I have to a specific record. So let's come here, double check all of this. Now, what I will need to do, same thing. Come here, let's start with, actually, I'll tell you what, let's start with delete. Delete is always easy to do. Actually, maybe I should have done that last, since it is easy to do. All right, we've created it. We've told it, okay, so now I need you to call a particular function when you go to that page. So let's open here, and we will start code here. And I guess we will just let this be the delete operation, recipe delete. Okay, take that, and this is very short, just so I can be sure that we grab everything. Let's come here and grab this entire function. Close everything up. And let's do a little bit of spacing on this so we can see what's going on. All right, and now you can't get much simpler than this. I am deleting. Let's see, I need to change that name. Best. How about this? Best recipes delete. Okay. So I am changing. Or just change that name so that it matches and corresponds to our module. I am passing to this the recipe ID, so that's the specific record in the database, and I will then change this here also. Best recipes to refer to my table that I've set up. So I'm going to, based on this ID, I'm going to go and look in my best recipes table. I am going to pass that ID, and then I'm going to delete that record. That's what this function will do. And then after that, we could, I gotta get to the edit function. What I would do here as well, always, especially when you're deleting, even when you're editing actually, but especially when you're deleting, always include in, are you sure you're ready to delete? And I could add that functionality here, but we're already running on time, so we will just leave this as it is for this moment. So that, I think, may be done. So now let's go in, make sure I save that this time. We are going to clear our cache again. And after that is done, we will see if we can delete, maybe let's delete the turkey sandwich. Don't want to delete the brownies. Delete that. And it is gone. And like I said, we're not trying to condense this video. I would go in and add the coding to, the if-then statement to determine, are you sure you want to delete this record, and just, give you a second chance just in case, because I'm sure we have all been there when we deleted something that we did not intend to delete. So, okay, now, so let's move on down. We're going to now go in and work on our edit functionality. Now, the edit functionality does take typically a little bit longer, but we are going to make it through. And the main thing I want you to notice in this is just logical sense. A lot of it is stuff that you've already done. We're going to be implementing our form field elements again, pulling that information into those particular fields, giving us the option to edit it, and then update the record inside of the database. So let's go back to our module, which is where we are. We're set to go. We're going to create our edit. Let me do that. Give me a new file. And here. And let's open this guy. And let's start. Oops. There, PHP. Here we go. And then this is edit recipe. All right, so we should be looking for a function called recipe best recipes edit. Got that. And Control C. Let's go back into our edit, create our function. Give me that. And I tell you what, I have this string here. I was testing something earlier. Let's see if that is working the way I expect. So let's come here. I am going to simply pull in that entire function. Back to my view. Again, I'm creating a link that's going to appear at the top of my page, and it'll just allow the user to click on the link to go back to the list of recipes. So that looks good. Then the next thing I'm going to do, let's see, I tell you what, let me copy this portion in, explain it, and then we will add the actual field elements so you can see what's going on. Let's take that space out. All right, so here, what is this? This is a function actually that I call from right here. I want this function to handle the update process for my database. So what this is going to do is go in and select, again, the record that I want. I'm going to be passing it the recipe ID, and it'll go into my best recipes table, find that ID, and then it's going to fetch everything and pull it back into the fields that I am about to lay out right now. So let's tell you what, because I know you all are accustomed to all of these form elements, I am just going to pull everything in here at one time. Okay, get that and that. Here we are. Let me take this here, space. All right, and just to lay this out a little better, that's fine. That's fine, I can see that well enough. And here. Okay, so again, these are just our form elements on the page. These are what are going to be populated with the actual values. Once the record has been retrieved, it's going to then take the value from the database and drop it into the actual field that has been specified in our application, okay? So what this is saying is the value of the ingredients field is going to be whatever is in the recipe ingredients field in the database. And then, of course, here's our submit button. Note that the submit button says update recipe instead of, save or send or something like that. Of course, it can say anything that you want it to say. So we've got that. Let's do this. Save this guy. And tell you what, we're going to check this all in one shot. I am going to go on and grab the submit functionality, place that in, and we can test everything in one shot. All right, so best recipes edit form. That is simply the name of our function. We then added submit to it, passed in form and form state by reference. I am using the global user variable here because I, again, want to grab that user and hold on to that data for that particular user so that I can have a reference to it. And in this particular case, we simply have a query. Again, I'm just moving these in so we can see. DB update, go to my best recipes table, and then for all of these fields, just update. Update my directions field, my ingredients field, my title field, etc. Execute everything and then go to the recipe listing page. I could have used redirect, kind of the same principle. So let's do that. And what we're going to see Fingers crossed. See, I am clearing. And I tell you what, let's add just a couple more recipes here. Let's see, pound cake. Butter, cream, sugar, flour, stir a lot. Okay, add that recipe. And one more for apple turnovers and apples. Dough, flour, cinnamon. Not sure if that's right. And blah 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 blah. Okay, I know that's not right, but we will edit that and fix it later. Okay, so we've added just a couple more recipes. We can go in and take a look at all the recipes that are in our database. They are indeed here. If we want to edit, let's go and do something to the pound cake. Best recipes. I will take a look at that in a second, but let's just see. Pound cake. How about, let's just say we want to do yellow pound cake. Update this recipe. And the edit is complete. And let's just say I wanted to delete this recipe. Click delete, and delete is done. And now if we want to, from this point, you can do so many things. Case in point, once the user has added a recipe, I am returning them to the add recipe page. You can actually have them go to the view all recipe pages so that they're here and they can immediately see that everything's been added. And of course, there's this link that will take you back to the add a recipe page. 10 million options, and so many more. But I'm hoping this will help you kind of get an understanding of, outside of just setting up blocks. And I know a lot of YouTube videos like to use that demo as they're teaching you module development. But I'm hoping that this, gives you just a, really nice little feel for how to set up an application inside of Drupal, what the capabilities are, and what some of your resources are for setting them up. So again, like I say, my advice would be if I will, again, zip all of these files up so that you can get to the module. But I would, just, take an hour and type everything out, just by hand. And then, struggle through, finding your errors. I think, obviously as you get to be a better programmer, I would say less, I don't know. But I can find my errors quicker, but that's because I spent the first 2 or 3 years of my development career, just, stuck with a white screen, and no clue as to what's going on. All right. Take care. I think this will be the end of our series for module development. I'm going to do another video just strictly on debugging because I think that is just really, really helpful. So I will get that video up and keep up with my site URL. I will just continue adding videos regarding Bootstrap and Drush. I strongly recommend that you really introduce yourself and get immersed in Drush because it's just really awesome. But I'll be adding more and more videos as time goes on. So everyone take care. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it.